I'm gonna wait on Jim for a little bit and see if he's able to unmute himself. So we'll go to Jill Karekis. Oops, sorry. Jill?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Jill Karekis. I'm a physician. I'm board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics. I also have 2 children who attend Ocean Avenue Elementary School. I would like to say that I believe that the hybrid model is a very conservative model that the superintendent has proposed. I believe in this model. I think that it is very important for our children to attend school. I think it's very important for those essential workers. There are many children in the Portland Public Schools who have parents who are essential workers, be them physicians, nurses, be them working at Maine Medical Center in the food service practices, be them people who are working in any facility like Hannaford. They need their children to go to school. They need to work to take care of you as citizens. This is very important, and I think that this model is the potential to make that happen. I would like to also recommend that we look at the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations, and they recommend that children go to school. And the Portland Public Schools has followed this model to the extent that is even more conservative than what they're recommending. I feel that my children are very safe there. I would also like to recommend that we look at the Portland Recreation Program that ran a summer camp, this program, very successfully following this same model and not having issues with COVID. I would also like us to look at the YMCA of Southern Maine, which also ran a summer camp, both of which my children attended. I felt that they were very safe. They followed the same model that the Portland Public Schools is recommending. They screened children. These children wore masks. These children were able to wear masks. There was not an issue. And I feel that we should listen to these people who took our children in for essential workers during the summer when we needed them, that this is possible, that our children need to go to school when we can, that this may not be for the entire year, but if we can send them now, we need to send them. And I feel that our teachers are essential workers, and those teachers who can't do it for whatever reason, they can do remote learning. And those parents who do not feel safe sending their children have the option to do remote learning. And I feel that the Portland Public Schools has been very successful at offering that option. And I think the board should support the Portland Public Schools in that they have done everything they could to look at the science involved in this, not the politics, the science, to get our children there and learning and safe. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, I'm going to try to go to Jim again. Jim? All right. All right, let's try Steph. We got to promote her over.
Hi, thank you. Hello. Thanks for listening to us all tonight. I do not envy you the task that you have. I just wanted to speak. I am not sure what the right answer is. I think your hybrid plan is very well thought out. I just wanted to speak to remote learning for a moment. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about sort of like how it was a failure in the spring. And I have also heard a lot of people make the point that that was sort of emergency learning. And I just wanted to sort of reiterate that I taught remote learning this summer in middle school. And I think that we had a pretty authentic classroom. We had a vigor of education. It was synchronous. The kids showed up at 9 a.m. in the morning and we had them until 3 with breaks. We had different classes. We had social time in which we talked, we played games, we had conversations, we did things like Mad Libs and just like online things, or we just talked about what was going on. I hadn't met most of those students, and I think we had pretty authentic connections. So whatever you decide to do, I just want to make the case that I do think that any sort of remote learning component, it can be really good if given the time and resources. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Steph. Okay, next we're going to Hopkinson.
Evening, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me fine?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. First of all, my name is David Hopkinson. I live at 9 Grafton Street. I have 2 children in the Presumpscott School, one entering grade 2 and one entering grade 5. Thank you guys for everything that you do. I have a proven track record of supporting and believing in everything that you all do. However, sir, at this point, I'm beyond frustrated. The buzzwords are process and enforcement. Focus has been put on distancing yourself, covering your facial expressions, air purifiers, and spending money, the different layers. I won't get into the spending money part on how the city council hasn't properly funded schools over the course of the last few decades. That's for another meeting. However, not a single discussion involves respiratory education. To be clear, in a respiratory pandemic, we are not teaching children how to properly use their respiratory system. When I bring this up, I'm pushed to social workers and school nurses. Respiratory education needs to immediately become part of our basic curriculum. The most equitable thing we can do, we are not doing. Teach children to breathe properly through their nose. This will save lives immediately and can start immediately. At the same time, let's teach them why. Controlling CO2 imbalances and intolerance will provide decreased stress and anxiety and lead to a better prepared learner every single day. But first, it will save lives and becomes part of your layers. I didn't have much time to prepare my comments, so I'm not going to go on much longer. I'm just going to finish. And to finish, I'll just say it one more time. During a respiratory pandemic, we are not providing respiratory education to our students. Our students include adults at adult ed, teachers. Everyone should be provided with respiratory education during a respiratory pandemic. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, David. Next, we're going to go to Alex Posey. Hello, Alex.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yes, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, rats. Oh, good, you can. Okay, thanks. So I want to say thank you to all of you very much, teachers and board. You have incredibly tough decisions, and whatever ends up being the decision, I will support. I love our Portland schools. My concern, I have 2 Portland high school children. I'm in North Deering, by the way. Everyone else said where they are. At Portland High School, and I'm certainly concerned that they're having no in-school opportunity, and mainly from the perspective of, it seems to me that right now we are as safe as we will possibly be for quite a long time, and if we're not even attempting it now, when would we? I don't quite get, it seems like most of our neighboring towns are going hybrid, as far as I know, with all grades. And it seems like we should try. Now is the time. We need to take some measured risk and be on top of it and be ready to pull back immediately if things don't work. But I don't hear anyone talking about the best case scenario, which certainly could happen. All summer long, we've been increasing tourism, and so many people keep talking about what a disaster it's going to be, and nothing is changing. Our levels have stayed the same all summer. It's starting to seem reasonable to believe that we may be fortunate, incredibly fortunate geographically and naturally, population density and that type of thing, where this may not spread out of control. If it does, we obviously have to stop. We need to be on top of it and have plans to do so quickly. But it seems like we need to try. So the main thing I want to ask about it is, I haven't heard any plans for what type of metrics there are to include the 10 through 12th graders. And I mean, I'm concerned that there isn't a plan and that they're already going to be out all year. And I apologize if there is a plan that I haven't heard, but I've been asking around and can't get anyone to say what that is. But I would assume when we review this in a month, I would hope that there are some metrics that if things are staying the same or improving, that we roll in more and more people and increase our risk as long as it's going well. So that really is the gist of it. I again, respect everyone for so much and I'm grateful for our amazing schools, but I really think we need to push the envelope a little bit safely and cautiously. But if, as a society, we need to do our best because this isn't going away anytime soon. And that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Alex. We're going to go, we had another person that was skipped earlier, so we're going to go to Aaron Brennan. Aaron? Aaron, can you hear us? Okay, I don't think we can hear Aaron, so we'll just wait a moment and we'll go to Alison Belani.
Hi, as Allison Volani, and I live at Salem Street in Portland, and I am a parent of a rising junior at Portland High School, and I also teach at Reiki. I'm the art teacher, and Peaks. And I want to recognize everybody's hard work this summer, because if you haven't been a part of that work, the logistical nightmare, then I don't think you can quite appreciate the amount of work that's gone into it and the fact that there's no good solution. However, what I would like to say is that if we are remote, or if and when we are remote, we need full cooperation as teachers from parents, which requires full communication from the district. So as teachers, we're going to do our best and go beyond what is asked of us. But we cannot do it by ourselves, and parents cannot do it by themselves either. And what they need is very clear information from the district to become partners in their childhood's education, which is what they want to be. So that's what I would really like to promote and ask for in a timely manner. And I would also like to say that I did like Superintendent Batana's comment about if families are having pods, safe pods at least, that you think about having an inclusive pod. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. So next, let's try Aaron Brennan. Are we able to hear you now? All right, Aaron, we cannot hear you if you are speaking right now, so we're gonna go on to the next person, which is cultivating community.
Hi, everyone. This is Lily Chaliff. I live on Munjoy Hill, and I'm a community partner. I really take to heart what many people are expressing, and I feel the depth of the pain of this situation. I debated if I should make a public comment because I know my voice has been heard in this process so far, and I'm grateful for that. I've been a part of the outdoor planning group since it started. Convening groups outside is 20 times safer than indoors for the spread of COVID-19. I know there's a lot of momentum to put this into place throughout the district, and the efforts are to maximize the site plans that the volunteer architects put into place far beyond the 2 outdoor classrooms in the original plan. I want to thank everyone from the district and school board who supported the incorporating of this outdoor classroom model to the potential reopening. I have already seen clear commitment and resources to this effort, and this makes me very hopeful. I had the great honor to be a part of the tour that modeled what this could look like for all of you on the school board. I hope I'm not overestimating your reaction, but I believe I saw some hope and relief from all of you as well. My fear is that this piece of the reopening plan has not received enough attention, and its potential for helping mitigate a lot of the risks and fears that are being addressed in tonight's comments are being overlooked. It is new territory and a new model, so I understand the hesitation to make large commitments or promises. I know it cannot mitigate all the risks or be a solution all year given our climate in Maine, but it can help support a safe return this fall and give students and faculty a chance to meet safely and create in-person relationships to help bolster remote learning days. It's important to note that the summer camps that did run successfully this summer, including rec, prioritize the outdoors. Other school districts are also putting outdoor learning first models into effect around the states for the fall, and we will continue to learn and improve together. Falmouth, as an example, has already identified 100 outdoor learning sites on their campus. While I know we are a different district with diverse school campuses, I have seen we have the community support and innovation to think outside the school building and add another layer to help mitigate the risk and potentially even add benefits to in-person learning. While I want everyone's concerns to be taken into account as they are all very valid, I want to encourage outdoor learning to be a more prevalent part of the solution for this fall to help staff and families who do choose to come back to school to feel less anxiety about their safety. Thank you for all you've done, and I'm incredibly grateful for this community and the commitment and care that you all have shown to this process.
Thank you, Lily. All right, next we're gonna go, the name says A. Alexis.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thanks. Thank you all for your hard work. My name is Age Alexis. I'm a school counselor at Deering High, and I live in Brunswick. I have two thoughts. First, on Friday, I was asked to answer a survey that didn't reflect my reality. It asked if I'm unable to return or if I'm coming back in person. My reality is that I don't have an underlying health issue that is keeping me from being in person, but my anxiety is such that I question how effective my services will be if I'm in person at work, but terrified every day. I also question how effective I will be as a family member when I get home and I am terrified to bring a virus with me to my 7-month-old and 3-year-old, or to my meme who is 83 but has said she would take the risk of seeing me rather than be home alone. My office does not have a window or ventilation. As a counselor, I often work physically closely with students dealing with deeply personal issues, and I wonder, when will I be crushed under the weight of that if I am counseling students through something that could have been avoided if we stay mostly remote for 4 more months? Second, I'd like to quote Rick Younger, who said, "With all of the talk of kids going back to school, I keep hearing, they've fallen behind. What have they fallen behind? Our created expectation of what they should be or where they should be by a certain age. There's no set finish line of where our children have to be by 18. I just want my kids alive," end quote. I wish I could be with all of my students in person. I want to be in school, but I urge you to keep us fully remote, except for small groups that need to be in the school so that we can develop best practices and update our buildings at least through the cold and flu season so we can see what is coming. Keep us all alive and healthy. Whatever you decide, I have an unwavering respect for all of the work you are doing, both the board and central office staff. And I hope you all get some good self-care in the next few days. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're gonna try Aaron Brennan again. Aaron? Aaron, we can't hear you. We've Yeah, we can't hear you. Erin has emailed me to let me know that she had some problems with her phone. So I'm gonna leave her there and move on to see if she can get that figured out before we finish. Next, we're gonna go to Emily.
Hi there. My name is Emily Pines, and I live at 126 Revere Street in Portland. The last two callers spoke directly to how I've been feeling, the school counselor and the person who spoke about outdoor learning. I'm a parent of a 10th and 12th grader at Deering, so I completely get it with the argument against fully remote learning. I've seen the struggle with my own kids. They're very good students, but emotionally, I think online learning can take a toll. And understand it's not ideal. However, it feels like we've kind of co-opted the term social emotional distress to make our argument for in-person. I work also as an LCPC in another district as a school-based counselor. So social emotional needs are paramount to me. I do therapy through an online format with children. And at times at the end of last school year, I was the only one occasionally to have a personal connection with the kids that I was working with. On the flip side, during the last couple of months of the school year, I heard stories of students getting together for Zoom lunch dates and remote homework parties. We've come a long way in our adjustments to this model and could think about potentially meeting outside for homework get-togethers in a distance way in a remote learning world. At the end of the school year, remote learning wasn't ideal in many ways due to the fact, as I noticed with my own children, that at the high school level, kids were not always meeting with teachers in seeing their faces, through a Zoom format, but rather sent work home, which was not engaging and difficult for motivation. And probably due to this, I'm hearing a lot of high school students calling and advocating for themselves as they feel left out and angered by the school board decision to have 10th through 12th fully remote. But keep in mind, many colleges have gone fully remote, some by choice and some after outbreaks. Most recently, there were a couple of colleges, I believe in North Carolina, and there was one announced today that after an outbreak went fully remote. Teachers have pivoted and learned new strategies and formats to present difficult topics such as science labs in a remote format. And I say all that to say, I believe this is where our energy should be focused, improving online at this time. And I'm saying that only for safety reasons, not because I feel like it is an ideal situation.
Emily, you have about 8 seconds left.
No problem. And with creative in-person opportunities such as learning centers, I would be fully on board with outdoor learning in person because I do believe it's safer. And I just want to thank you so very much for your time. I deeply appreciate your commitment. I grew up in Central Florida. My family moved here 12 years ago, and I every day am thankful that I live in Portland, Maine, and not in Florida due to your thoughtful decisions on returning to school. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to see Aaron Brennan. Can you try once again to speak, see if we can hear you now? Nope. We're going to go to Giovanna Bichard. Giovanna?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I appreciate you taking the time and for all the work that you're doing. I had more of a procedural, logistical comment, something that I hope that you
Can you give
discuss.
us your name? Can you give us your name?
I'm so sorry. I live in North Deering, and I have a student at Lyseth and a student that's going into Moore, Giovanna Bichard. My question / procedural comment is, so if you're asking folks to choose the remote option with the survey result on Monday, and you vote on a hybrid tonight, you're not going to know your staffing issues, and you already have so many people that have asked for accommodation. I'm just concerned and hope that you would discuss what happens if people choose on Monday. Then what's the time frame for when you're going to know if you have enough staff to go back? So potentially you vote hybrid tonight, but then you find out you don't have enough staff, and it seems like a lot of staff that you have to try to backfill for anyone that goes out on remote, also in addition to all these other teachers. So you tell parents tonight it's hybrid, but then potentially a week or a week and a half later, then it's remote because of the staffing issue. I just think that presents some childcare issues and some concerns that some people might have. So I just would urge you to really think cautiously about where you're going to find all of those people. And then also the substitute pool. It just seems, I don't envy the position you're in, and I very much appreciate all the work that you've done. And I think that the options that you've put forward give parents a choice. I just think procedurally, it seems pretty difficult to figure out how to fill all of those positions in this short period of time. So, and just as a plug for remote, I know a lot of parents have said that there's concerns about remote. I would just like to say that my kids' teachers had the most phenomenal, rigorous remote plan. And I understand that's not what everyone had, but I think that remote, for when the kids are in remote, if parents do choose that, I think that it can be done very well. And I'm also encouraged by the outdoor learning options that have been put out there. And I think in particular, our building principal at Lyseth has done a fantastic job of communicating and answering emails and requests for more information. So this is a difficult situation that you're all in, and I appreciate all your hard work. I just really I hope that you discuss the time frame of, if you tell parents it's hybrid tonight, but then you don't know about the staffing, then you tell them it's remote, what that does for childcare and for families as well. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Giovanna. Okay, next we're going to go to Tammy Coach. Tammy?
Hello, do you hear me?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Tammy Koch. I live at 53 Harbor Street in Portland, Maine. I'm a single mom of 2 kids. My first one is 9 years old, and my second one is 2 years old. I would like to vote for the hybrid one because, at this time, I understand about the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of people worry about their kids' safety and healthy. I worry about my kids a lot, more than my life. But for myself, I have to go work part-time, and I have to go back to school for USM for my last year for my social worker, because I have busy for my working and school, and right now USM let the student go back to school, and now I'm so worried about my kid for the daycare and stuff. If the kid cannot go school, my 9 years old at home for the whole summer, he only play game and iPad, and even he's always boring and and watch TV. I'm stressful, and I'm so worried about my kids too. I don't know what I have to do. If they cannot go back to school, at least they can go back to school for 2 days a week. He can't just learning from the teachers, understand things and meet meet friends and socialize and everything. It's better than the kid just stay at home and learning the remote. Sometimes I have to sit with him like 2-3 hours and show him like you have to do this, do that for the computer, because the kid like under 10 years old, I believe it is very difficult for them to use a computer and understand conception and how to submit the homework. And I don't know how the kid can handle for like the remote online for like a whole year. I'm so worried. So I really hope like the kids can go back to school, and I really worry about the kid's safety too, but I believe the kid can wear the mask because I train my son at home. Like he can wear the mask by himself and he can just like practice. He doesn't take it off. And I really hope like they can, people can vote for the hybrid remote too, and the kid can go back to school. All the way the kid just stay home and they really gonna like stress and didn't know how to do anything, only like sit with computer and online and stuff.
Maybe you have about 5 seconds to go.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I need to say. Like I really hope Portland Public School can let the kids go back to school at least 2 days a week, so they can just like go back to see the teacher and their friends and understand everything and the learning too. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Next, we were able to, someone was able to help Erin Brennan with her connection. So, Erin?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm so glad you were able to figure that out.
Wow, I ran about 5 miles to get here.
Go for it. You have 3 minutes.
So this is Erin Brennan. I live on Clifton Street in Portland. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm the mom of an 11th grader at Portland High, now wishing he were at Casco Bay. I have immense regard for the kids that spoke, especially Tess Conroy, the 11th grader. Did you hear her points? High schoolers are doing this. They've been doing this all summer, at work, at camp. They're ready. They're poised. I'm hearing a lot of worry and a lot of concern and a lot of fear. Fear is a big word right now, as if we live in a red state. Well, we don't. We ran a summer camp with no issues. This summer, Karen gave a very compelling recounting yesterday. We live in a green state. I'm not sure where the yellow state came from, but let's verify that. Fake news. I'm not sure if the callers advocating remote learning realize that we're in a green state. And to Penelope's point at the very beginning, I'm unclear, just like Alex is, why our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders have been singled out as the only kids who are full-on remote. Let's trade with the elementary schools and let our kids, who are on the edge of the rest of their lives with in-person, move to in-person learning from experimental learning. I'm not saying send them back full-time, but I agree with Holly Sheehan. Let's find ways for in-person academic instruction now. Janet Mills has gotten us to the point for this reason, to bring our kids back to school. She sacrificed our summer tourist season for this moment right now. Superintendent Botana said the plan is more conservative than what's required. Why are we sacrificing our 10th and 11th and 12th graders who are on the verge of entering the real world by putting them back to the remote learning model, a model that absolutely did not work this spring? And with all due respect, when you say that reassessment in 4 weeks is a plan, reassessment is not a plan. We want to know what is the plan. When we reassess in October, who are we sending first? 10th, 11th, 12th? We want a clear plan. What I ultimately want to know now is how. How are we planning on meeting the learning standards? What does the grading system look like? How are our children going to be equipped to apply to college or post-secondary education? Are we really going to relax the standards again? Are we going back there? And finally, this is easy. No masks. Kids don't wear masks. They don't go to school. For kids who refuse to mask or disciplinary action, send them home. This is not that hard. Let's be bold. Let's not leave our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, next we're going to Betsy Paz. Betsy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Betsy Paz Gameshi, and I work as a parent community specialist for our Spanish speakers in the district. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the many families that have called me to express their worries and their concerns regarding remote learning. Remote learning was very difficult for many of the families I work with. While they are scared, just like all of us are, of the coronavirus, they need to have their children go to school. The community that I serve does not have the luxury of working from home. These parents need to return to work in order to meet basic needs. Aside from the economic necessity, parents struggled with being able to support their children's learning. I can't tell you the hours that I spent translating and assignments, tutoring students, talking a parent through an assignment so that they could help their student. This led to, parents being frustrated and worried. This just added to the worries of how are they going to make rent. I have parents that are so behind in rent and are worried about getting evicted. So these parents, while scared, they are really wanting, many of them, for their students to be able to return to school. And they are trusting very much the plan that Superintendent Botana is proposing. So I just urge you to please consider starting with this hybrid model. My community really needs to be able to send their kids to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Next, we're going to Andrew Tannenbaum. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Tenenbaum. I live in Portland. I have a 7th grader at King and a 9th grader at Portland High. I am married to a teacher, and I'm a pediatrician in South Portland. Thank you all for your service and your time and energy spent trying to come up with a very multifaceted, difficult decision. And thanks to all the amazing teachers helping to make our Portland schools so great. I'd like to bring up 3 points. One, it seems like most everyone agrees that if we can teach children in person, we should. The social, emotional, and educational benefits are without question. This is why the AAP has strongly advocated for doing so when safe. We want the best for our children. 2, now is the time to start in-person learning for 3 reasons. First, our state is in a relatively good position currently. Governor Mills, Dr. Shaw, and many others in our state have done a tremendous job to help keep Maine with among the lowest COVID rates in the country. Most parts of the country with in-person learning are not in a place that they should be doing so currently. Second, masks work extremely well. I've seen this directly over the last 6 months in my practice. We can get our students to wear our masks, albeit with many reminders, and good luck to the teachers with that. And thirdly, this hybrid model allows for physical distancing by placing less than half of the typical kids in a classroom at a time, as would normally be there in a normal year, and for shorter in-person school days. This really does make a difference as well. And 3, I emphasize with all of the teachers, parents, and children with pits in their stomach at the thought of starting in-person school. The anxiety is real. I felt it many sleepless nights in March of this year, and it does get better once you see what works. It gets better pretty quickly. But if the rates in our community stay low and we can keep kids in smaller groups with masks on, we can do this safely. This is the time to offer in-person learning and offer all remote options for those who choose it. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we're going to go to Ashley Daniels. Ashley?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, my name is Ashley Daniels. I live on Barclay Avenue, and I am a junior at Portland High School. As a student in the 10th or 12th grade group that will be learning remotely full-time, I'm disappointed. I feel like the later years in high school are the most important years of our educational lives because now is the time where we decide what we want to do post-graduation. I think that it's unfair that we are being put down in this plan as most of us already have jobs and are already familiar with the social distancing guidelines. I believe that every student deserves a choice to be fully remote or have in-person classes because the reality is if you're not comfortable going to school, then you don't have to. This year, I'm supposed to take 4 AP classes. I personally need to be in school for me to learn. My experience with remote learning this spring was not effective. I found myself unmotivated, often frustrated, and I felt like it was unhealthy because I would end my day with a migraine. This isn't how I want to learn, and this isn't an effective solution for learning in a classroom. It just isn't. I think every student should have a choice, and not just elementary and middle school levels. I feel that if there's a way to send elementary schools back for 5 days a week by mid-October, there's a way to give all high schoolers a choice with what they believe is the best for their education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, we don't have anyone else with their hand raised waiting to speak, so we'll close the public comment. I'm going to turn my camera back on. Sorry about that. We're going to come back to the motion. Oh, wait, we have one more person. We have one last one before we close it. So Elizabeth Capone. Enriquez, Elizabeth.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, there's been a lot of debate tonight, so...
Do you want to give us your name and address first, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. My name is Elizabeth Capone Newton. I live on North Street in Portland. Yeah, there's been a lot of debate tonight. What I would like to talk... I believe in transparency, and so what I want to talk about is, first of all, that I helped start a new group the past couple weeks. It's called Safe Schools Protect Us All. And I have been very committed to trying to bring people together that have different ways of approaching this problem. And so whether the school board or the administration's intent was to divide us or not, I'm not going to debate that. I don't care if it's an accident that you caused divisiveness with some of your ways of approaching this problem, or whether it was on purpose as a strategy to get what you wanted, which was the most sort of simplest, if you will, way to deal with the problem. As people have said, this is a complex crisis. It deserves our best attention and creative thinking. It is absolutely not okay to send kids into a hybrid model that, from a public health perspective, I have a master's in public health from Columbia University, 25 years of experience working in preventing the spread of communicable disease. And this is absolutely unsafe. I can illustrate with a quick example from my family. My partner works at East End. My children go to Lyseth. My mother is a caretaker of my children. She lives on Peaks Island. She rides the ferry with the Peaks Island Elementary School kids and other children on Peaks Island whenever they go to school. And my brother is in South Portland, and his kids might be going to school. So if anyone in our little bubble gets COVID, we can spread it out real quick. So how would we, but here's the point. I'm not here to criticize you. Fundamentally, I'm here to lead you to a path that actually makes at least 80% of your staff and families happy. Praise the Lord, excuse my language. And the way you can do that, and I've already emailed this to the
Elizabeth, do you have about 10 seconds left?
No problem. Full-time school, once it's safe, because you've done adequate due diligence around ventilation, outdoor space, and free daily testing, rapid testing. And the groupings of your children must be by their existing contacts. There are absolutely legal ways to do it. In fact, as Krista Vo mentioned, the way you're approaching the problem right now, if we want to, we can lawyer up real quick. And because the stakes are high here. This is about staff and students being able to stay alive. So please check your email. There are 4 amendments there, and they help you with the Portland Promise because they lead you to have more staff of color and ratios of 5 children to 1 for your special ed and EL students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so we have one more person on public comment, and then after this one, we should be done. Mary Murphy.
Hi, this is Mary Murphy. I live on Pitt Street. I'm the parent of a Portland High junior. I feel like staff basically made our arguments for us last night as to why in-person learning is so important. Yet 3/4 of our high school students have, for all intents and purposes, been left out of the hybrid reopening plan. As I understand it, requests from families and teachers who aren't comfortable returning in person this fall can mostly be accommodated. So it's hard to understand why this vocal minority needs to advocate against in-person learning for anyone, when the Maine CDC's judgment is that there are ways for us to safely do so, and many of us believe that in-person education is essential and can be safely provided. We've now been told that the high school plan will be reassessed in October, but given the logistical reasons we've heard for not bringing 10th to 12th graders back, we have been given no clue as to what the reassessment will be based on and what might change. Our hardworking high school students need in-person learning. The current proposal is inequitable and has not incorporated the concerns of high school students and families. Please amend this plan to include at least some regular in-person class time for all high school students who want it, and more overall time for academic content. Please also ensure that there is clear information and meaningful opportunities for parent involvement in any ongoing reassessment over the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, so with that one being our last public comment, we'll bring the conversation back to the board. Reminder, we're still on our main motion, so this is the opportunity for board discussion. Sorry guys, I lost my thought. We'll use the raise your hand feature, okay, if you want to chime in. Ms. Morioni?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, before we get started with our deliberation, I wanted to offer an amendment around our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and wanted to see if there might be other board support. And I'm bringing this up because I'm actually speaking from experience, having a senior that just recently graduated from Deering High School, and also an older student who just went virtual from college. Seeing them do virtual learning along with their colleagues and teammates and so forth, seeing the disconnect that they felt going virtual as, again, a senior in high school. And when, again, as mentioned in some of the comments, it's a time where they really are ramping up for getting ready for college or after high school experiences. I really fear that. I know that I'm trying to understand better the Learning Center model, but I would like to have at the very least 1, possibly 2 times where our 10th, 11th, 12th graders would be required to go in a small cohort way. And I'll use an example that was given by a parent of a senior, an incoming senior. They had a son who will be starting AP Bio, and that son won't, as he knows, won't have a lab for that class. And so she suggested, how about a cohort of that class going in just once or twice a week for our lab? And so I think it can be done. And I just want to offer an amendment to the superintendent's proposal, again, to allow for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders having 2 in-person experiences during classroom time, small cohorts. I don't know the specifics, but I'm going to leave it there and see if there's a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
All right. So I think Ms. Morioni did a good job explaining the motion, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Do any other board members have questions for Ms. Morioni on her proposed amendment? I know that, so Ms. Thompson, you had your hand raised from before. Do you have a question for, you don't have to lower it, but do you have a question for Ms. Morioni?
Not on this particular thing. I have something else after this.
Okay. Ms. Figdor, do you have a question for Ms. Morioni?
I guess I'm wondering, just trying to get more granular about what the amendment would do. So what it sounds like you're saying, and I might have it wrong, it's just there's, I think you're saying twice a week, there's some required in-person time in small cohorts. So that's what I heard, and yeah, just trying to have more clarity there.
And thank you, Ms. Figdor. I wish I had more specifics. I just, again, using that example of an AP Bio lab, that would be a small cohort that could come in twice a week for a lab with their AP class. Or let's take, it would be led, I think, more by a teacher saying, okay, I know I have this group, small cohort group that I can do 2 times a week with. But just so they did have opportunity to come in and do some type of in-person learning versus all of it remote and all of it virtual.
Mr. Barrow?
I guess maybe just a question for the superintendent, that what Marnie just described, is that precluded by the current plan?
I don't think it's precluded from the plan, but it's also not, it's not sort of, the plan does not require that to happen. So it would be adding a layer of planning that we don't currently have in place.
Ms. Figdor?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the superintendent and Assistant Superintendent Townsend on how, how feasible it would be. We've heard the desire from the community for sure. And I personally support the hybrid approach as it's been proposed. But I'm wondering, how feasible this might be to add this additional layer.
Aaron, do you want to tackle that?
I think, I guess what I would say is, while I completely understand and hope, to be able to accelerate to as much in-person learning, the reason we didn't come forward with a recommendation for 10th through 12th grade at the same level. I mean, we started at that place in our work group, the high school work group over the summer. And as we tried to evaluate and drill down into the granular specifics that Ms. Morioni refers to, we found it exceedingly complex to balance the facility needs, the scheduling needs, to be able to do it in a way that we felt comfortable was going to be safe. I mean, we've heard from teachers today, speaking about some of the space constraints, at our high schools and trying to figure out how to do that. And so, if that's the will of the board, we will continue to work towards making that happen. But it is exceedingly complex to manage it in that way. And, that was why we came forward with the recommendation that we did.
Okay. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question on this, and maybe Assistant Superintendent or the Superintendent. So we heard about other districts around us having their high schoolers back, and they switch classes, etc. So I'm just wondering, do you have any glimpse into how they're making that work, or Have you heard anything further from other districts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what Mr. Townsend just said, that those complexities, they've weighed them and they've come out on a different side of the equation. So I don't think that their situation is any different from ours. I think that they've gone more aggressively than we have.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bondo?
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions for the. I would like to support the amendment because I know the remotely personally really affects one of my graduate son around April. If I remember, Assistant Superintendent Thompson, when you mentioned about the student who will stay remotely, the 12 and 12, the 10 and 12, and they going back to the learning center. The same teacher who being remotely with them, those are the teacher who may go back afternoon and the center learning. Because we have a group of teachers who ask for accommodation to stay remotely. So I wonder if they have the group of teachers who stay remotely with the 10 to 12K, and then at the learning center, which group of the teacher will be there?
Right. I mean, I think you're raising an issue that is, kind of yet to be determined somewhat because we're awaiting on the board vote, and I believe staff may be in terms of what the expectation is. There is the potential, we don't know the outcome, that we would, if the expectation is increased for the amount of in-person time for 10th through 12th grade teachers, there's the potential that we would see a reciprocal increased request for accommodation, which would kind of compromise our ability to, which would just make the staffing picture more challenging, as Ms. Stoddard laid out.
Oh, okay. Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so if we don't have any other board questions on the amendment, next we will take public comment on the amendment. So if there's any member of the public and the list of attendees that will want to speak to the amendment on the floor, proposed by Ms. Morioni, which, and if I'm not summarizing this correctly, Marnie, correct me, what is being proposed is that we have 2 days available of in-person support for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders in our high schools. Is that a good summary? Okay. So members of the public that want to speak specifically to that amendment will use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. I will call your name. Once I call your name to acknowledge you, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. I ask that you please start with your name and address. Once you near the end of the 3 minutes, I will interrupt you to let you know. And if you need additional time, we can grant an additional minute. Otherwise, we'll try to move through the public comment as quickly as possible. All right, we'll start with Penelope.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, we can, Penelope. Go ahead.
I very much appreciate the motion on the table by Ms. Morioni and seconded by Ms. Thompson. I believe that 2 days of in-classroom instruction is appropriate. I have spoken personally with an advisor to the governor's office and the CDC on the guidelines for return to school. Personally, I have heard that cohorting, quote, to the extent practicable, is all that is required. When discussing having half of the 10th, 11th, 12th graders coming in on a Monday and Tuesday with the remainder live streaming at home, and then having the other half of those grades coming in on Thursday and Friday with the remainder live streaming at home, is a significant reduction in any risk, and in and of itself is a cohort. That proposal, as we were just sitting there brainstorming on how we can accomplish getting the kids back into the classroom, which I think universally is agreed upon as the preferential treatment for our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, the future of our country, it doesn't seem like it should be that difficult. All of the other communities surrounding us have done it. Portland is clearly up to the challenge. Do I expect it to be easy? No. I understand this is complex. My child is complex. The multitude of children from low income, moderate income, high income, low learners, moderate learners, high learners. We're all involved here. We're all a team, and we need to get these children back to school. So I appreciate the motion. I hope that this board has heard the public comment to have these 10th, 11th, and 12th graders not left behind. 2 days of in-classroom learning can be accomplished. The students that have spoken before you tonight, I have so much admiration for them. I hope you appreciate their passion, their desire to learn, and their recognition that rules must be followed and will be followed because we all care about one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. Next, we'll go to Holly Sheehan.
Hi. I'm Holly Sheehan. I live on Washington Avenue. I have a 10th grader at Portland High School. I really appreciate Ms. Moriani, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, adding the amendment for a second in-person activity. As much as I love Superintendent Botana, I'm horrified that he said, and I quote, "The other districts have gone more aggressively than we have." More aggressively in educating our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Why can't we be as aggressive as Falmouth or whatever other districts, Yarmouth, in teaching our kids? So please, at a bare minimum, vote for Ms. Moriano's amendment, when in reality, you should be educating our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders 2 days a week, like every other grade level in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Next, we'll go to Rachel. Oh, sorry, one second. Excuse me. We'll go to Rachel Pargeter.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm Rachel Pargeter. I live on Payson Street in Portland. And I have a 10th and 12th grader in Portland High that will be starting up soon. I appreciate Mr. Botana's caution in having one in-person learning center experience offered per week. I understood Ms. Morione, excuse me, I'm mispronouncing your name as well. I believe it's Morioni, but I could be wrong. Ms. Morioni's amendment to be 2 learning center opportunities per week instead of 1. If that is truly what the amendment is, I support it. But I also appreciate the logistics behind it. Maybe it could be something that could be phased in. Just a suggestion, just a thought. I don't know if you can amend an amendment, but that's just my thought. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, and next we have Sheila Jepson. Principal Jepson?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I would just add that, we are willing to make any accommodations that are possible. I would add that this amendment, one of the things that we haven't talked about all evening is the
Sheila,
yes?
I'm so sorry. Just so that people know who you are, do you mind starting with your name?
Of course, I'm so sorry. Sheila Jepson, I live at 138 Walcott Street. I'm the principal at Portland High School. So again, we'll do anything we can to make things work for our students, that they are our priority. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned tonight is that we have space limitations. And to speak just specifically to an AP Bio lab, for example, given the requirement and the space limitations, I can fit 15 students in an AP Bio lab, and I have 21 who are signed up for the course. So I would have to select and do an alpha split. And so if that were to happen, then we have to recalculate and figure out how that happens. So I want to recognize that, sure, that's possible. It would take us time to figure out how to do that for all of the 10th through 12th grade students because of the space limitation of the classroom sizes in our building. Thank you.
Okay, and next we're going to go to Sarah O'Barry.
Hi, thank you. I'm Sarah O'Barry. I live at 37 Birchwood Drive. I am the Freshman Academy leader at Portland High, and something I might have should have mentioned earlier is I'm one of a small team of a couple people that works with our leadership team that actually does the master schedule at Portland High. And that's the context for how I talk to you about our limitations at Portland High. It's really unfortunate to only be able to speak to you for 3 minutes in a public comment to tell you the realities of making this amendment happen before September 14th when we open. I appreciate that my principal just spoke. Some of the details we're still trying to work out for 9th grade in particular are how to sanitize the desks in between classes, which will take place in a 5-minute period of time, as you can imagine. We don't have enough desks to make students sit at a completely separate desk. We have cohorts that are up to 15-ish when you look at the A to K, L through Z split. So teachers will need time to sanitize. We had to move classrooms. We have a freshman wing that we've been really happy to have freshmen in a centralized location where they can build community in our building. And we've had to completely rethink that and move teachers out of that hallway to make sure that we can think about how students will stay safely spaced in hallways in between classes as they travel around the building. There's so many details still to work out just about how to make the 9th grade piece work. I want our upperclassmen to be there. We want to figure out this plan, but this amendment, which would say that we need to figure this out and make this happen for September 14th when we don't even have the full details of how we're going to make it work for 9th graders and keep 9th grade teachers and 9th grade students safe, is just an impossible ask. And I don't say that lightly. I have a 10th grader who is dying to go to school. And all his friends tell me every day how much they want to go to school, and it's heart-wrenching. But I am telling you, this is not possible for the start of school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we have Ann Christie.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
This is actually Christiana Gannon. I'm Ann Christie's daughter. I want to say thank you guys for taking so much time to do all of this and to go through everybody's comments. I'm a student at Portland High School. I live over in the Cheverus area. And I just want to say that as much as I would want to go back, I don't think it's a smart decision. I think that, in all honesty, if we're looking at numbers and if we're looking at the rate in which the virus has impacted our state, numbers have actually increased within the past couple of weeks. If you look at the schools that have gone back, even in southern states, I know that we're not in that region. However, they raised as soon as people went back to school because they're in a small and enclosed space. I understand that a lot of kids want to go back to school because they miss their friends, because they miss the normality of it. However, it just doesn't seem like a smart option to me. Personally, again, it doesn't, as much as I wish it was like something that I could do, I just don't think it's smart. And the other thing to me that really bothers me is just the consideration of how the teachers are feeling. There are a lot of students who I don't think have considered how the teachers are going to be impacted by this. A lot of the teachers are going to have to see multiple different groups of kids a day. And especially for high school, with us swapping classes, with the cleaning of the desks, I think that there are so many factors to consider, and there are going to be so many little things that are missed that it doesn't make sense for all of us to go back. I mean, if, as Ms. Obari said, if it's going to be hard to do even just the 9th graders, to throw in the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders as well would make it even more hard, which would mean that you would miss even more small details, even more small little things that could just make everything go crazy. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, Anne. And I don't see anyone else waiting to, excuse me, I'm sorry, guys. I don't see anyone else waiting to speak. Of course there is. So, well, let's go to Elizabeth Capone. And a reminder that this is public comment on the amendment that Ms. Morioni proposed to increase the Learning Center opportunities for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders to 2 days a week. Elizabeth?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to respond to that amendment. My name is Elizabeth Capone Newton. I live on North Street. I have 2 children who are in elementary school, so I've been admittedly more focused on my concerns about elementary school, just since that's what I'm most familiar with. But I am appreciative of the intent behind this amendment, and I've listened a lot tonight to the youth themselves who are in grades 10 through 12 expressing their needs for connection and a meaningful way to do school. And I've listened to parents of youth of the same age bring up the same issues. I actually think that it would be possible to do it 5 days a week. I think it's about how you group children. Like I said, I have a master's in public health and 2 decades of experience working around communicable disease, including for the city of Portland school-based health centers. And so what I would wonder is if there's somebody among the board who might amend the amendment to allow students to come into the building, but in ways that are grouped by their existing social contacts, because that's the only way to really do a harm reduction approach to the spread of COVID. And it's very responsive to the earnest pleas that you've heard from parents who are overwhelmed. And I'm sure even though we're talking about grades 10 to 12, I'm sure there's still parents with children of that age who would really like to see them have some time outside the home, supervised, right? So I just want to be clear about how the language could be for that. What it means is talking to youth and parents. There's social network, health, public health research, many models, many ways of doing this. It can be done with your own data people and Infinite Campus. And it just means that you take the next 4 weeks or whatever you have to get good data on who people are already spending time with in grades 10 to 12. You just ask them, who do they spend the most time with when they have indoor in-person contact? Some of them have siblings. And then they're able to enter the building. You just have to keep them in small groups. And as you know, you have fewer than 7,000 students in your district and more than 1,000 staff between teachers, ed techs, and student monitors, which means if you group them in smaller groups for special ed and EL and larger groups for non-special needs, you would actually have, yeah, no problem, finishing up. You would actually have enough space once you solve your ventilation issue. And obviously you shouldn't do it until you solve your ventilation issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, Tess Conroy. Tess? I don't see Tess. He was one that we had to switch over to list of panelists. Oh, there, I see him now. Tess, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. So I'm going to leave you there for now, and then move on to the next person, and then try to come back and see if it works. So next, Olivia Bean.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. My name is Olivia Bean. I live on Casco Street. I'm also a teacher at Portland High. And I was on one of the many committees that the district put together over the summer to come up with this plan and think about all of the details that people who don't spend every day in a school teaching or working or ed teching or being a counselor. And the complex part of when we get to high school is that students pick their schedules and they pick classes they're really interested in. And so I understand the idea and the thought behind potting students based on who they spend time with or the alphabet, but that's not possible in order to give students the academic experience they expected. Some students might take AP Bio, but college prep math, you can't just mix them together with people who are taking college prep biology because they hang out together. Space-wise and schedule-wise, like Ms. Jepson and Sarah Obari mentioned, it's not realistic and it won't give students the experience they want from school anyway. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Next, let's go to Johanna Burden.
Good evening. My name is Johanna Burden. I live at 26 May Street in Portland. I am the parent of an 11th grader who would very much like to return to Portland High School in the fall. I am also a PHS school counselor and another part of the smaller team that's been trying to work on logistics of making A through K, L through Z semi-potting work at Portland High School, and that work is painstaking to try to make sure that our students are going to remain safe and that our teachers are going to remain safe. And this proposal, in my opinion, is asking for 400 students because we have a population of more than 800 at Portland High, so over 400 students to be in school at once and to start in probably, let's say, 60 different classrooms, and then block 2 scattered to 60 different classrooms again, and then 60 different classrooms, and then 60 different classrooms. The potting that people are asking for makes a lot of sense in idea and in theory and does not work in actuality. My heart goes out to all of the young people that would like to be in school in person at the high schools across the district. We understand why you want to. We wish we had the space. We wish we had the staffing. But I just wanted to join my many colleagues in saying that I do not see a way to make this possible, and we've already spent many hours trying to do this, and we will again if the board requires us to. But I just want to say, as a community member and a staff member, I don't think it's possible, and I want to be able to have us have more time for people to understand why it's not possible, so that they know how much we also want our students to be educated, want to see them in person, and how much we want to be able to do the right thing during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burden. Appreciate that. And then next, we'll go to Angie Ishimwe.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi, my name is Angie Ishimwe, and I go to Portland High School. I'll be a senior, and I also live on Dennett Street. I don't know what to mention. But basically, I feel like when I saw that it was going to be freshmen that are allowed to go back to school, but not seniors, it was kind of confusing to me why freshmen needed to go to school when seniors are the ones that are going to have college upcoming. And then we also do have a bunch of first generation kids whose parents they don't have the support some other kids do because their parents haven't gone to college, so they don't really know how to navigate that whole process. And I feel like kind of having seniors go to school and having that on hands help with college that's like a lot more helpful than it would be having, especially when we already have that sense of like responsibility, and we know the school and we can like navigate it and like keep that whole distance thing going. But with freshmen, it might be a little harder. And also, like, another thing with me about, like, I do agree that it's not necessarily unsafe. That it's not necessarily safe, sorry. But I feel like many people are also looking at, like, kids who are, like, in abusive homes and stuff like that, that many people may not know. Like personally, I'm, like, fortunate enough to not be in that, like, situation. But there are multiple kids who use school as a safe place, and kind of taking that away from them and them having nowhere to turn to is kind of, I don't know. I feel like people, like, that's being overlooked. And yeah.
Thank you, Angie. All right, so we'll close the public comment on that part. And Ms. Thompson, I feel like you had your hand raised when we started the public comment. Do you still have a question or a comment? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm like babbling away over here. I have a question on something else, but so I can lower my hand and raise it again if you want afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Trevorrow?
Okay. So I just wanted to speak to this amendment. I'm uncomfortable. I feel like the entirety of the plan that we've been presented with fits very intricately together like a jigsaw puzzle. And when we move just one part of it, that has implications that are much broader than something that I'm comfortable changing at almost 11 o'clock at night without it having been more thoroughly vetted by our staff. So I think I'm going to vote against this proposal, although I do understand the sentiment that's been clearly expressed by the public, that it would be ideal to be able to offer more in-person instruction to grades 10 through 12. And so I think probably for me, the best way to deal with that is to kind of give the superintendent just our interest, or an indication of our interest, that we'd like to kind of see that looked at and analyzed for kind of our first round of revisiting this proposal in October as a priority piece, not to dictate one way or the other, but just to have that be flagged kind of as something that we might like to see further sooner rather than later. So that's my thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Mr. Burke?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I understand the spirit of this motion, although I don't understand the precision of the motion. If I understand it right now, it's 10th to 12th grade students would have in-person learning support 2 days a week, and that's pretty big and broad. And I don't think we're in a place to engineer anything more specific right now. And so I'm in line with Ms. Trevorrow with trusting the work that's gone into this thus far. I do want to speak to the two factors that seem to be at play here. One is social emotional health of our students, and the second is our academic and college achievement. And on the first, no doubt, our children are struggling. We all are, quite honestly, and I don't think we're honest enough about that. And I think it's been clear that I've been loud about that and trying to create space for that in our meeting tonight, and I'll continue to do so. In terms of academic and college achievement, if I understand it correctly, Harvard is fully remote for the entire school year. They're going to allow 40% of their campus capacity to be used for freshmen for housing, not for classes. Those will still be virtual and online. And then if they haven't fulfilled their 40% capacity after allowing freshmen on campus who have unsafe homes and have circumstances like we're discussing here, they would allow seniors in. And I think it aligns with the thinking that we've heard from staff about why certain groups have been prioritized. And I trust that the staff and the superintendent will continue to look at ways to get students' needs met. I mean, that's loud and clear. And I know there's not enough dots on the I's and crosses on the T's for a plan when we say, well, we'll look at it within a month, but that's the plan we have right now. And we're on a very fast-moving train, and there will always be more questions, and there will always be a request for more details, and I acknowledge that. I also want to say that I completed 2 undergraduate degrees fully online, and my graduate education was through a low residency model, which is most like the Learning Center model, and that was over a decade ago. So paired with what we're seeing in our campuses, our college campuses today, plus what's already been in motion, I'm not in the camp that this isn't preparatory for college. I think it's very preparatory for college. I think it's very preparatory for taking ownership of your learning. And I think it's very preparatory for doing rigorous work and finding motivation deep within yourself to do that work with the counseling and mentorship of faculty and peer groups in ways that don't look like what we might be used to in our K through 12 programs previously. That's my personal experience. I know it's not everybody's, but it does seem that the world is tilting that way a bit. So I would not vote for this motion as it stands. I think it's too vague, and I don't think it gives the space that the staff will need to continue to direct our planning in this way.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mr. Balfans.
Thank you. I will not support this amendment. I agree with Member Trevorrow that the superintendent's proposed plan is a lot like a jigsaw puzzle. And I think that was represented by the principal and staff of Portland High School when they indicated that there will be issues regarding space limitations as well as time limitations. Because of that, I will not support this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Balfans. Ms. Figdor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to why, my understanding of, why we're not bringing 10th to 12th graders back. And it is, first informed by the science of COVID transmission and the fact that teens are believed to transmit the virus just as adults do, while younger kids don't transmit it in that way. So that's the first starting place. And then we've heard a lot about certainly the need for cohorting and the challenge of doing so, given that high school students take such different course loads. And then finally, we've heard a lot about the size of Portland, in particular Portland High School's classrooms, and how challenging that is as an additional factor. I absolutely hear the, intense desire of students and from parents with students in 10th to 12th grade of being back in school. I absolutely hear you. I get that. But I think I want to take a cautious approach as we move forward to reopen schools. And I think that the approach that the superintendent and his team have put forward strikes the right balance of, based on our success in Portland, in the state, of really getting this pandemic under control, but of the continued risk factors, that this plan is the right plan. So I appreciate that we'll come back in October and reassess this and look for every opportunity to have the learning centers being a meaningful time for students to interact in person and to get the support they need. So I think this strikes the right balance now, and I will not be supporting the amendment.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Bondo?
Yes, thank you. And yes, I think the superintendent, I think we already spoke to him my sentiment for the for the for the 10 or 12, and I was on the leaning to support them, but when I heard the assistant superintendent about what's the issues and also the teachers and the staff from the high school, I won't be able to support the amendment. But what I would like to recommend is that are we using the learning center more efficiently? Because if we can make it a little more mandatory than optional, so students can feel like, okay, they have to go and use that one effectively. And also if they can use also, because I know a lot of families and students won't have an issue with the hotspots. So if we can make some accommodation also for them to use the learning center for a space where they can have a better spot to use the internet. And I think coming back to October with a clear plan, what we assessed and what we're gaining from the assessment, so we can see what's going to happen next. So I won't be supporting the amendment the way it is. Thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo. Ms. Morioni, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I appreciate Ms. Bondo's comment, and that's one of the main reasons, too, that if we are not able to pass this amendment to at least have the learning centers be as robust as possible, and particularly could incorporate some type of lab opportunity. You could take learning, it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole class for a student. I understand the difficulties around the planning and all of that. I wasn't intending to say you had to do it specifically at the same time that the ninth graders were going to be there. You could still have an AP bio lab that would be at the same time as the learning center time. But I completely understand where the superintendent and staff are coming from, and I will defer to them. I just want to also reiterate the fact that I am deeply concerned that this can deepen the difference in resentment between our high schools, where you have Casco Bay being able to do going back to school, and you have the other two not. So I'm very concerned by that, and that's another reason why I raised this. This is a concern. So I totally understand where my colleagues are deciding to vote, but I would appreciate just continued work around bringing the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders back, if at all possible, by October. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morioni. I'll say just a few quick things. Number one, I obviously recognize where this amendment comes from, and it is responsive and acknowledges a lot of what we've heard from students and families in those grades. So I 100% agree with the sentiment behind it. I think other board members have said the same. I'm troubled by two things. Number one, that I just don't, to the answers that we've gotten to the questions around possibly doing something like this, I just don't see how we can do it and maintain the same coherent level of safety and health precautions that we're trying to maintain elsewhere. What I do hear, however, from the superintendent and his staff is a commitment, kind of like what Marnie just said a moment ago, to continue to work these things through and to continue to, even from last week from August 4th to today, we saw some added elements to that. So I know that they're responsive to this, and that they are trying to provide as robust as possible opportunities for in-person support. And I'll be as clear as everyone else. I'm not satisfied with what is currently offered, but not because I don't think that they haven't tried to do more, but because the reality of what we have is for us to be unsatisfied with pretty much everything that we're going to decide on tonight. I think we've all agreed on that. Before I send it, because I think the superintendent wanted to share with us a few things before we vote on this, I do want to cue something up, and maybe he can speak to this as well. one of the concerns that I hear from students, those upper grades and the more competitive as far as rigorous classes that they're taking, one of the concerns that I hear them is the disadvantage of which either a remote setting or anything else that's not as rigorous as in person, the disadvantage that it places them with other seniors who might be competing for post-secondary opportunities. So one of the things that I was hoping the superintendent can share with us, or at least tell us that they are working on, is the conversations that we've had with admissions departments with the Maine system and USM and other universities that will help us. Let's say, for example, last year when we went into a pass or fail grading system, that would help them interpret those P's and so forth, so that the admissions department can say, oh, this student, this pass meant they want to dig into that application and figure out exactly who that individual is. So I just want to hear the superintendent speak to what level of discussions we've had with admissions department. I know that our grading system is still something that I don't think we've discussed. But I feel like that type of information might be helpful for our upperclassmen and those students who are thinking about post-secondary opportunities. Might be helpful for us to discuss that with them as well. So that's all I have to say. Superintendent, you wanted to speak to us before we vote?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, in essence, that as I think you rightly pointed out, we've already advanced in our thinking and understanding since 2 weeks ago as a result of the feedback that we've received. And so I don't think that we're very far from what Board Member Morioni is asking us to do. I know for a fact that the conversations that are happening at each of our schools are about how do we figure out the structures that we can bring together that will allow for maximizing in-person time for our students. I think we heard that, in our focus group last week, and we clearly heard that through the many emails, and you heard that through the testimony today. We are committed to trying to maximize that learning time, the learning center time, as in-person time. So whether it's through courses, the way that Mrs. Morioni suggested, or through the advisory periods, trying to bring students together is, I think, premium. I did hear loud and clear from some of the people that spoke today about the fact that we did not provide a detailed plan for what we would be looking at to reconsider in October. And while we don't have a specific plan for what that would be, it generally falls into the same category as what we've said we would be looking at for pre-kindergarten and fifth grade to come back. So we would be looking for how successful have we been at, actually getting our protocols in place and making sure that we know how to run school in the age of COVID. So first and foremost, obviously, maybe even more first and foremost than that is, have we been able to manage the virus as a state, as a community, as a result of reopening schools? And so, those would be two key markers of our ability to actually being able to bring anybody back. So we're committed to, in October, and not in October to then do it to plan it in November and then to do it in December. In October, we're committed to coming back and saying, we think that we can do it, and this is what we would propose to do, or we don't think that we can do it. So I just want to be clear that we're not, trying to string anybody along with this. We do have a broad idea of what we would look at, and it's not unlike what we're looking at for making the move to full in person for pre-kindergarten and fifth grade.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. So board members, if we don't have any other comments or discussion, we can put the amendment to a vote. So all those in favor of Ms. Morioni's amendment to add a second day of in-person learning center opportunities for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, please indicate by roll call, and I'll ask the superintendent to.
Mr. Atkinson?
No.
Mr. Balfons?
No.
Ms. Bondo?
No.
Mr. Burke?
No.
Ms. Figdor?
No.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Trevorrow?
No.
And Chair Rodriguez?
No. Okay, so the amendment fails with a 6-3 vote. Excuse me, 7-2 vote. And we're back to the main motion. Okay. We had a couple of hands raised before we went to this amendment on the main motion. Do we have anyone else that wants to add something? Okay, absent of any other comments or any other amendments, our next move would be to vote on the current proposal. So, having Mr. Barrow.
I just wanted to speak to the motion before we take a vote. Reflecting on, obviously, we've heard from many members of the public, teachers, parents, students, a whole cross-section of stakeholders in the community on this issue. And I wanted to recognize particularly the teachers and the deep health concerns that many of them are grappling with in looking at returning to school. And I wanted to validate that concern. My parents were both public school teachers. They're retired now, but thinking about, the question that they'd be facing if they were still working at this time, I can see how that would be a very scary prospect. That said, as a board member, as I've been reflecting on this over the last couple of weeks, I feel that our obligation is ultimately to create the optimal conditions for learning success for our students. And yesterday, when we started this marathon meeting, the first part of the presentation focused on the district's perspective and philosophy on in-person versus remote learning. And I really appreciated that, because that was really the fundamental question for me. Because if we're going to ask our educators and our staff to take that health risk, the benefits need to be worth it. And I believe that they are. I believe that in-person learning offers something to support the whole student that can't be replicated in fully remote learning. So I am convinced that this plan represents an innovative and effective system for delivering education that is informed by prevailing best practices in health and in education. And I think that's the best we can do as a district. And I'm fully supportive of the plan as it stands. I know that we'll be flexible and things will change as we receive more information going forward. I think that's key. But I appreciate all the work that has gone into this on the part of staff, administrators, educators, everyone. I appreciate everybody putting possibility first with an eye towards creating the best educational opportunities for our students in the face of a pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trevorrow. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Trevorrow, you did it so eloquently, talking off the cuff. I had to write down my notes, so good job. I just wanted to add, I wanted to thank, as Ms. Trevorrow did, to everyone for their emails and outreach regarding the return to school, and thank you for sharing your ideas and concerns. I want to thank all the staff who have worked so hard this summer to get us where we are today, and thank our custodial staff for working hard all summer preparing our schools for possible return. The work is evident that has happened to get us here is above and beyond remarkable. This week, we all had the opportunity to tour East End Community School, and the amazing work that has gone into the outdoor learning spaces there is remarkable with Brooke Teller and her team. Inside the school, the organization of the classrooms, entering and exiting of the building, the playground, loading and unloading of bus. I just want to thank the leadership team there for all of their hard work and for hosting the school board at your school. I think going in and seeing the way it was set up was very helpful to me. This has been by far, I think, for all of us, a very challenging time that we find ourselves in, and probably, I would say at this point, the hardest vote in my 13 years on the board to make tonight. On one hand, we have students who are craving to be back in person and for their mental health need to be back. Then we have teachers and staff whose mental health is also an issue because they are scared and afraid to come back. Being immune compromised myself and an employee of a healthcare facility, I was torn about returning to work. Families who need to work to earn a living, remote learning has proven to be extremely challenging. Students who are unique learners need the routine and stability, and being in school provides for that. We've heard from our educational partners at Baxter School for the Deaf of the need for in-person learning for the success of our hearing impaired students. I do hear loud and clear, and I truly support more in-person instruction for grades 10 through 12. I do agree with Ms. Morioni that it exasperates what some feel the division between Portland and Deering and Casco Bay, and I think that we need to address that sooner than later, as soon as possible, to get equal footing and have it as equitable as possible. So I appreciate all of the hard work that went into this. I've gotten a lot of text messages and some things I think that are really hard because I think we all take it very seriously. And in no way do we want to put anybody in jeopardy. But at the same time, we have to make some hard decisions sometimes, and this is one of them. So I will support the hybrid plan with the note that as soon as possible that we address grades 10 through 12. And also, I hope that we will be able to accommodate as many of our employees as possible to make it equitable on their front as well. And I appreciate all of the feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Ms. Victor?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I want to start by acknowledging the complexity here and also how deeply personal the issues are, returning to school, returning to work, and that each of us has a different ability to assess and manage risk. I have found this absolutely by far the hardest vote that I have taken on the board, and not because I don't think this is the right plan, because I do think this is the right plan, but it is heart-wrenching to me to see and hear the fear among our staff at returning to work. The fact of the matter, though, is that the educational benefits of being physically present in school are clear. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that the goal should be that students are physically present in school. They say the importance of in-person learning is well documented, and there's already evidence of negative impacts on children because of school closures in the spring of 2020. The National Academies of Sciences says students of all ages benefit. This is a consensus report. Students of all ages benefit from in-person learning experiences in ways that cannot fully be replicated through distance learning. The educational risks of extended distance learning may be higher for young children and children with disabilities. In addition, without careful implementation, virtual learning alone runs the risk of exacerbating disparities in access to high-quality education across different demographic groups and communities. We know this. in-person learning, as we heard yesterday from our staff, is the goal that we are trying to achieve. And we're able to start to get there because the Maine CDC, Governor Mills, in partnership with all of us, have been able to do a good job managing the pandemic here in Portland and across the state. The Maine CDC is now saying it's their assessment that it's safe for us to resume in-person learning. And we are meeting every scientific standard, whether it's the World Health Organization or the Maine CDC, in terms of being in a place where we can return to some in-person learning. So again, I think it is clear that the harm from lost time in school outweighs the risks of returning to school. But there are risks, and that's why this is so hard. I appreciate that our plan takes a gradual, staggered return to school. I am heartened by the fact that we have community groups and summer camps that have provided other child care providers that have taken care of kids and run camps all summer without any cases that I know of. And perhaps you all will tell me about cases that that happened, but I'm not aware of any cases in Portland or nearby that resulted from camps and other child care facilities where there were large numbers of kids or relatively large numbers of kids together. One aspect of our plan that I am really enthusiastic about, and I'm very grateful for the increased commitment to, is outdoor learning. I heard Malia say yesterday when she was talking about kind of the latest plan that we are thinking of it now as a cornerstone of our reopening plan. And I think that is so important because we know that the risks of transmitting COVID are so much lower outside. And then there's also, so it is just safer for our kids and our staff. And then there are lots of other benefits from outdoor learning. So I am really grateful for all the work that has gone into being able to make that a big part of our plan. And then finally, part of the reason I believe in this plan is because I believe in our kids and our staff. I've seen our community rise to this challenge already, and I'm really optimistic that we are going to work together and make returning to school possible. So I will vote tonight in support of the hybrid plan.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Mr. Burke?
Thank you. I echo the tremendous work that's gone into this plan, and that all plans aren't perfect, as I've worked various scenarios, and myself through this entire process, particularly the last 2 nights. Everyone has a liability. Everyone doesn't work for somebody. This one puts to work the principles we saw designed at the very start of the process back in the spring, and that were held up yesterday, that focus on safety, wellness, agility, coherence, culture, and equity first and foremost. We've heard clearly from many families that we've tried to center in the design here that they need in-person, and some others said they need remote. And this plan provides that choice. I don't think it's my place to take one of those options away. I think we've under-promoted good remote learning. It's still very much part of the hybrid plan. We heard from Lex and Libby 2 examples of how that went very well this summer. So I just want to say that is important. It can be done well. We've done it well, and we'll need to continue doing it well. I think we need time to metabolize all of this. I've been sheltering in place for 160 days. I've been extremely conservative. It was a big deal for me to go to the East End School on Monday. I'm here tonight, and I was here last night at home, and that's a quick thing to comment on, that we're all virtual or in separate rooms in the same building making a decision about being in person. I'm at home not because I'm against meeting in person or that I necessarily would have felt unsafe being together, but part of making it safe for our schools to open is to keep reducing contacts for as long as possible, to keep Maine headed in the right directions in terms of our COVID-19 infections. So I'm at home so we can open our schools, honestly, not because I'm trying to tell other people to do it while I'm not comfortable to do it myself. Although I do have those feelings, I am uncomfortable, and we have to care for each other in that way. I just want to highlight that we also have to continue to deal with our twin pandemic of systemic racism, and we've only begun that as a district. I'm going to support the plan, acknowledging and supporting the district to go full red at any time because of COVID infection rates or staffing concerns. I support this plan, acknowledging district staff will continue to be responsive. And I also ask that district staff try to take things as slow as they can within this frame. You've all been spending a tremendous amount of time with it. You've known it inside and out. It's new. We just spent 8 hours going through it together, trying to get our questions answered, some of our community's questions answered. The people that have to make this their plan now, our teachers, our staff have needs that they need attended to, and they need patience while they both move emotionally and intellectually, as well as behaviorally, with all that's going to go along with doing this work together. Please, 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 please give much more space to our emotional needs. We have to be brave, but it doesn't mean we have to be numb or unnecessarily tough. Our kids need us to be emotionally intelligent. Our adults need it, and our humanness needs it. Also say, please be proactive to say that we aren't on track to open as planned moving forward, not only because of COVID rates, but if any of the facilities improvements are off track due to manufacturing, distribution, or installation. And please be outside as much as possible, and please be gentle with yourself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Ms. Bondo?
Yes, thank you. When we closed the school in March and decided to be remotely, my first day was the day I would be on the board meeting and decide to go back to school. And I used to share with my kids, I say, as a parent, how I do feel deciding to send other children and kids in school, and I try to protect myself or my children to do what they're supposed to do to be safe. But when I keep going outside and talking to people from the community, talking to parents, people have a different ideas, different ways. And I come out myself to say no one has a perfect solution. No one has a perfect answer. So I think the time is so critical, so painful, and I think the hybrid, what I would like to support is that is giving a choice and options to parents who want to stay remotely and feel comfortable with that, and the parents who has to be on the front line and to be able to send their children. And I really deeply believe that the district, by working so hard with that amazing team to try to put that plan, and by knowing that that plan can change tomorrow, anytime, because no one is so sure that we can have that plan until the end. So we are aware of that. We are also aware that the information needs to be shared with families a little deeper. So families, they're aware and be in touch, knowing step by step any infection, any safety issues. That's the most concern, and we need to make sure that caring from each other This is why communication is really important. Because I feel when I talk to one of my friends who has 2 kids with IEP, and then she asked me this morning, you guys didn't decide anything yesterday, so what is going to happen today? Because Jasmine has to go to school. She's depending on everything at school. Being home is not helping her. She's depending. She now has nothing that I can do. I don't know how to use the remotely system to help her. So I came tonight. I said, I think the hybrid can give my friend and other parents too with special ed education children and other kids the option to go at school. And I know teachers and all the staff will make sure that we're working the CDC guidelines and all the safety measures. The one thing I would like to recommend to the board, to the district and the superintendent administration, the facility improvement, we just need to be realistic to make sure are we going to be ready to September 14th. If we can get some updates on how the facility improvement is going for each school, so we know ventilations and all the windows, everything. So at least before the 14th, if we have to do any change, I think we need to be bold enough to recognize that. And also the staffing, we don't need to wait as the board to know next meeting are the way the staffing has done. So I think as soon as possible, we can be updated with the staffing and know all the different strategy approaches with the process of hiring going forward. And I will support this motion to go hybrid. Thank you to all the team. Thank you for the time and commitment that teachers and staff has put together to try to come something. It's not perfect, but at least it's a start. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bondo. I don't see any other hands raised. So actually, Ms. Morioni. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I was happy to wait towards the end because I really wanted to hear my fellow board members' comments. As everyone's spoken so eloquently about things, and to be perfectly honest, I ebb and flow constantly between, is this the right decision? Is it the wrong decision? And finally realized there is no right decision right now. There's just not. There's not a right plan. We don't have any blueprint on what we're doing. We don't have any examples to really follow. We just have to, honestly, right now, put faith in those that have been working tirelessly in the work that you've done, Superintendent and the staff. And I'm just overwhelmed by and appreciative of all of the hard work that's gone into this. And the care, the compassion, the listening, remaining empathetic to all that we've heard, and hundreds and hundreds of emails and community members that have contacted us. I think the best that we can do is really offering options, which now I'm feeling more and more comfortable with the fact that by allowing each and every family and student to determine what may be as best as potentially could be at this time, with giving options of virtual learning or choosing to go back if need be. I think it's about as close as we can get. When I hear the students that are falling through the cracks, that continue to fall through the cracks, those with special needs, those with IEPs, those that family members don't have any options to stay home, those that in the multicultural center there, and very helpful to hear from our interpreters today. And just imagine, put myself in their shoes to imagine the magnitude of trying to manage a household in another language, in a new country, and understand how could you possibly not find a way to have my child safe back in your schools as best as you can. Then I think for my teachers, the teachers in our community, I want to validate your fears. I'm scared every day. And I'm not even going back in the classroom. So I just want to validate. I've heard it, I've read it, and I want to honor your feelings, and I hear you. However, we need you. Our community does need you. Our students really need you, and they need you because also, granted, let's say they come to school and all they're learning to do is put on a mask and wash their hands. That actually may save, at the end of the day, it may save our city, it may save our state, that we have these little ones that now know how to be safe in this environment. This pandemic does not seem to be going away anytime soon, and we may be looking at another 12 to 18 months of this. And if we can even, at the very least, have a month or two of teaching our little ones, or all of our students, how to maintain proper hygiene and stay safe, understand why they need to do that. Maybe that's all the learning that they need at the moment. I certainly know I appreciate it when I go out and go to the grocery store and wonder why someone behind me doesn't have a mask on. Why wouldn't they choose to put one on? So this is a long-winded way of explaining or saying that I will be supporting the hybrid model. I have oftentimes been reluctant, but I again think now more than ever, we need to put collective energy into saying we can do this, we've got this, we're here for each other, and we're here for our teachers. We'll do the best possibly can to allow, again, options for all that need, and be respectful of those choices, whether it be families, students, and staff needing to make alternative options for themselves. But thank you very much again, Superintendent and staff, and to my fellow board members for all of this hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marioni. All right, so I don't see any other hands raised, so I'll just say a few comments before we take a vote. Like everyone else, I consider this probably to be one of the more challenging votes that I've ever taken. Even as as I'm thinking of what my comments are right now, I find myself contradicting my thoughts, being contradicting each other, and not even being able to finish a sentence, trying to make a point without like another voice in my head saying no because of this, right? Like there's just so many. I think Ms. Trevorrow made a really good point when she described the pieces fitting together like a puzzle, and you can't take one out without the whole thing shifting over. And that's how it feels when I try to figure out what position I'm going to take, or what I'm going to try to what side I'm going to try to support here. Instead of repeating what a lot of my fellow board members said, I think I'm going to just go through a quick little rapid fire of what I've tried to do over the last 2 weeks, just to acknowledge the thoughts that I've had. So I, at one point, was trying to have conversations with not just board members, but with the superintendent, trying to really figure out what would it look like if we started in a remote setting, even if it was for a short period of time. And I floated that around to a lot of people, because that was the sentiment that I was hearing that I felt I needed to try to address at one point. And that was difficult for me to even arrive there, because back in the spring, when we initially closed schools, when we went to full virtual, I remember, I'll never forget that day, right? I'll never forget that day, because I knew the call was going to come out. Superintendent had told the board he was going to send out that call later in the day. And we all knew it was going to happen, right? Like it was inevitable. And then the call came in, and we're hearing here in my house, at least, we're hearing the superintendent's voice in the recording, letting us know that they were going to close schools for 2 weeks and then reassess. And in the back of my mind at that point, and I think to many of us, it was clear that it wasn't going to be 2 weeks. Like we said 2 weeks and then we'll reassess. But most of us had a good idea that this was going to be a long-term event. And many of us knew that it was going to be the rest of the year. And I remember that being the saddest moment in my school board career, knowing that in that one phone call, in that one decision, we sealed the fate of so many kids. I'm going to be dramatic here, but we lost kids. We lost kids because that's not what public education is supposed to do. We're not supposed to close our doors. We're not supposed to serve kids in the least effective way possible. We're supposed to do what this plan is asking us to do, to look at all the risk that we put kids in when they come into school. And I'm thinking outside of this pandemic environment, because every time that we send kids into our school buildings, every time our staff goes into a school building, we are mitigating risk, right? We're trying to serve the needs of our students while overcoming huge barriers. Some of them are barriers that are out of our control. Some of them are barriers that even we put in place, right? Because how many times do we, kind of take one step forward to take two steps back? And the more I thought about that, how painful it was for me to close schools in the spring, and I connected it to how this plan was developed, the easier it was for me to acknowledge that what we're doing makes sense, or what is being proposed makes sense. We will never be able to get rid of the risk, but we need to put things in place to try to minimize it. And I believe that what we're doing in terms of listening to the medical advice of experts or public health officials addresses that. It doesn't eliminate the risk, but it uses the best information that we have, the best data that we have, to try to minimize it as much as possible. And me as a healthcare professional, that resonates with me, because I trust my training. I trust my training, and this kept me safe for over 17 years as a clinician. And I've worked in all environments that right now we talk about being the biggest hotspots, right? I've worked in acute setting, skilled nursing settings, assisted living facilities, independent living facilities. I've worked in pretty much everywhere that a healthcare therapist could have possibly worked in. And again, I trust my training, and that's what's kept me safe. So my sense is that if this plan, if the energy that went into this plan goes into training our staff, training our community and our families into what those safety and health protocols are, that they will be effective because they work. Yeah, that doesn't have to. I don't have to say that. Excuse me. I don't have to dismiss the sentiments of the teachers that speak of the challenges to incorporating those interventions. I believe that 100%. And I can't. And I'm not a teacher, so I can't fundamentally understand or contextualize what your experiences are like. But I can definitely relate to the fear, and I can definitely relate to the hesitation. So I believe that those precautions and those safety and health precautions that we have in place will be effective. And I think I think this is the right thing to do for our school district. But I recognize that it will not be the right thing to do for a lot of individuals. And in that very conflicting and I probably didn't make a lot of good points. I probably just rambled off. All right. I'm confident in this plan and the work that went into it. So I'll leave it at that. Having said that, we'll take a roll call vote. Consideration and action to approve the proposed 2020-2021 school reopening plan. The superintendent, please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
And Chair Rodriguez?
Yes.
And yes for me as well.
Mr. Barrow.
I'm sorry.
Right. So the motion passes. It's unanimous.
I just would like to say a couple things quickly, and I know that speeches are not what we need in this moment, but I just do want to underscore some of what you've said, which is I personally acknowledge the fear and trepidation that all of our staff feels going back to in-person learning. This week, my wife went back to in-person work at her school district, and I could see in her emotions all of the same emotions that I read and hear when I talk to our staff. We had a tremendous meeting today with our EdTech and Teachers Association, where we built a framework for not only meeting but exceeding the state guidelines for safety and health. And we did that in that spirit of togetherness that Mrs. Morioni talked about, and that is the conviction that we're in this together. And of course, we will do whatever we need to do to keep our kids safe. And to do that, we need to make sure that our people are safe. And so I know that there are a lot of people who are feeling that same fear and trepidation that, we all feel, and that, I witnessed at home with my wife this week. And I can assure you that we're committed to working together to do everything that we can to keep you safe so that you can keep our kids safe and learning, which is what we are here to do as an institution. I also want to capitalize, I guess, on the comment that Mr. Burke made about not hesitating to pull back. Just like we've been pushing to reopen and to understand that the moment is right for us to have in-person, to do our best to have in-person learning. If we can't do it for whatever reason, then we need to also have the fortitude and the stick-with-itness to actually say it's not safe and we need to hold back. So whether it's our facilities, whether it's our access to PPE, whether it's our staff availability, our commitment is to not open schools unless we have the assurances that we can do it in a way that will keep our people safe and therefore keep schools safe for our children. So to everybody, I'm incredibly, incredibly humbled to work with a team that has worked so incredibly hard, from the folks that are on camera to the hundreds of people that were on those PowerPoint slides that you saw earlier. This team has worked tirelessly and will continue to work tirelessly so that we can start school and keep school going in what are by far the hardest circumstances that I've ever faced, and I'm pretty sure that anybody in this group has ever faced. So thank you to the board for your confidence in our ability to move this work forward. I'm committed to doing it, and I'm assured that with the team that we have, we will be able to pull this off.
Thank you, Superintendent, for that. All right, so board members, we still have a few other things on our agenda we can probably get through rather fast. I hate to segue so quickly from something so heavy to something that's probably going to seem trivial. Superintendent, we didn't get to your remarks, and you were going to do also an update on the FY21 budget reduction. So if you want to take care of that.
Yeah, I'm going to skip my remarks. I will do the budget update because I think, if I can find it, because I think it's important for a number of things that that we need to do on the operational side, but also just because I think it's important for the board and the community to understand what it is that we did. So just, by way of background, at the end of our budget process, if you'll recall, we were in a situation where we wound up with $400,000 need to balance the budget. So in other words, we needed to find reductions that would offset our revenue gap, and so that was $400,000. The process that we followed, part of the resolution that the board provided was that we would attempt to do that by negotiating reductions with our different collective bargaining units, and then if whatever we couldn't reduce through that collective bargaining process, that we would find in programmatic savings across the system. And the board actually laid out a series of lines within our budget that we would look at. And so that's the process that we engaged in. We met with our associations, and for a variety of reasons, we were not able to get any reductions through that process. And we then moved to the next space, which was looking across our departments to find the potential reductions. So we did that by engaging with the departments and asking them to take a careful look at their budgets and figure out what were some of the things that were in their budgets that they would have to eliminate so that we could meet that $400,000 reduction. We analyzed our spending from prior years, so we were able to look at year-over-year spending and identify some areas that we felt had the potential to provide some reductions, and pointed those out to departments and engaged Miranda Fasulo, our executive director for budget and finance, engaged directly with department heads to point out some of those areas, and she and I talked through some of the potential reductions as we did that. We were able, through that process, to get to a very substantial portion of the reduction. So we were somewhere in the neighborhood of $315,000 out of the $392,000 that we needed came through that route. We also, when we introduced my budget, did not have a 3% increase for the non-represented staff. In my original budget, that was a 2% increase is what I had presented to the board. Even though in the course of the board discussions, there was an effort, a commitment, I believe a well-intended effort on the part of the board to say that we would not treat the non-rep departments differently than we would all of the other departments, that we would go to the collective bargaining units and see if we could get reductions from them. I felt that I had already made the decision when I brought the budget to you to have a 2% increase was my recommendation for the non-represented staff. So I did not, I don't feel like we're making a reduction for the non-rep staff, this is what I brought forward to you. And so we moved forward implementing that 2%, which is what I originally had proposed. And so that is roughly $50,000, the difference between the 3% and the 2%. And then the rest we achieved by looking at the school by school allocations, and Miranda worked with our team to come up with a formula that would do this equitably across our schools. And so the remaining balance, which was about $30,000, came from the school specific allocations. So in the memo that's attached, you see what that looks like for the various categories that were in the board's specific resolution. So out of professional service, employee training and development, staff travel, repair and maintenance service, and software licenses. You can see what the actual reduction, what the budget is in the departments for, from all of those categories, what the actual reductions that we implemented were. And then you can see the additional, you can see the other two areas, the reduction in the cost of living increase for our non-represented staff, as well as the reductions for schools. So that is, that's the report on how we were able to balance the budget to start the year. I would like to recognize Miranda for the tremendous work that she did throughout the budget process, and this is the sort of the final aspect of this year's budget to get it ready to go. And so thank you, Miranda, for all of your efforts on that. So any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? I'm still kind of looking over the document. I don't know if anyone else. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anyone raising their hands or any questions right now. This is not an action. This is the superintendent giving us an update on the way that he realized these. So board members, if you haven't already taken the time to read through the document and the explanation of the reductions, please do. And I'm sure if you have questions or anything else comes up, bring it up to the superintendent so he can address them. But I don't see anyone raising their hands right now, so it doesn't sound like there are any immediate questions. So if that's okay and you don't have anything else to add, Superintendent, then we can move on to the next. Mr. Burke.
I just want to say thank you out loud. That's all. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Burke. All right. So having thanked everyone and not seeing any other hands raised, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Report of the secretary. Consideration and action to approve the minutes of the meeting of August 4th, 2020. Is there a motion? Ms. Bondo, second by Ms. Figdor. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on the motion? And to members of the public that are still in attendance, we're taking public comment to approve the minutes of the meeting of August 4th, 2020. I see one person in the list of attendees that has their hand raised, Holly Sheehan. Are you raising your hand to speak on this motion to approve the minutes? Okay. I think they dropped off. It's rare that we have public comment for minutes. That's why. All right. So seeing no public comment, any board discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? I guess we'll do it through a roll call because we have a couple of members that have left the room actually. So by roll call, please indicate if you're in favor of approving the minutes of the meeting of August 4th, 2020.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? Ms. Trevorrow? And Chair Rodriguez?
Yes. And so the motion passes with a 7-0 vote. Ms. Trevorrow and Ms. Thompson did let me know that after that they had to leave. So that's why they're not with us. All right, next, at least I don't see them uploaded. Oh yeah, they are. We have the minutes from last night in there.
They were short, so we actually got them done overnight.
You guys really don't stop working. All right, consideration and action to approve the minutes of the meeting of August 18th, 2020. Is there a motion? Ms. Figdor, second by Mr. Burke. Any questions on the motion? Mr. Burke?
Friendly amendment that I think there's an incorrect record of votes on the motion.
That's what happens when you try to do things quickly. What is the error?
It was 7-2, and the 2 no's were Emily Figdor and Roberto Rodriguez. The additional no's per members Moriani and member Thompson are incorrect.
Okay. We'll correct
So so it's only where the names are that needs to be corrected, right? Like the no's next to the names? Because it says 7-2 vote by roll call. Okay. All right, we can take that as a friendly amendment because that's just, I guess, typos. All right, so any other questions? Mr. Balfons?
Yeah, another friendly amendment in the motion vote talks about Wednesday, August 29th at 5:30 p.m. Should be 5 o'clock p.m.
And August 19th.
And August 19th, there we go.
What happens when you do things at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Friendly amendments.
Appreciate it.
All right, I don't see anything else or any other hands. So is oops, sorry. Switching in the wrong one here. Right, so is there any public comment on the minutes of August 18th? Seeing none, back to the board. Any board discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, please indicate if you're in favor of approving the minutes of the meeting of August 18th, 2020.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson? I'm sorry, Chair Rodriguez.
Yes, and so that passes with 7-0 vote. Next, we're on consent items. Will the superintendent please read the list of donations made to the district?
Yes, per board policy BEDG, the board must approve the records. Oops, wrong motion. There we go. Per policy KCD, the board is required to formally accept gifts or bequests of a durable nature, of substantial value, or of historic or commemorative significance. As required by policy, all of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying this item. And our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. So with that, I would like to thank the contributors to the Portland Public Schools that have made donations of durable goods, substantial value, and historical or commemorative significance. And the contributors for this meeting are for Ocean Avenue Elementary School. They received hats and books from Kathy Stevens of Saco. Ocean Avenue also received a donation to help teachers provide resources for their students from Gail Eaton of Wakefield, Rhode Island. And Paths received a 2007 Volvo S40 for the automotive department from Kathleen and Colin Snyder of Portland. Thank you, Mayor Snyder. And Lyseth Elementary School received lanyards for all their students from Nan Boucher of Portland. And we are very grateful to all of them for their support of our work.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, we're in old items, or rather old business, consideration and action to approve the proposed 2020-2021 school calendar. Is there a motion? Ms. Figdor, second by Mr. Atkinson. Superintendent, can you speak to the motion?
This is the revised calendar that goes with the previous action of the board to approve the reopening plan with this plan. With this calendar, we move the beginning of the school year to the September 15th date, and I'm sorry, September 14th date, and make all of the necessary adjustments to the rest of the calendar.
Are there any questions in the motion? I have a question, and these are questions that are probably going to be difficult to answer, given "quote unquote" the uncertainty of the school year. With the proposal that we passed to have delayed the start of the school year, it was bothersome to me that we would be losing 10 days of potential instruction. And given that things might change throughout the year, I guess what I would like to know is, I don't even know how to ask it. I would like to know if the board at some point during the school year could come back to amend this calendar in a way that, should we feel like it tries to make up the days that we're missing here at the beginning of the school year. I know that that's not your recommendation, Superintendent, but I'm looking, for example, at, and I'm not proposing this, but I'm looking at the weeks that we have, like February vacation, and April vacation, and I'm not suggesting that we not have those, but given that we are losing 10 instructional days, I just want to know if the board could come back to change this calendar with the intent to make up those days. And this is probably filled with tons of hypotheticals. But again, I guess the point I'm trying to make, it bothers me that we are losing 10 days of potential instruction.
I would, I guess the answer to that is yes, there are significant logistical barriers to doing that. I think you're aware of what those are, not the least of which is the cost associated with doing that. Because even though we are losing the instructional days, we are, our staff is working on those days, and so they would need to be paid for additional days. And, as you've, I know you recall, not necessarily everybody on the board does, but, or people who are watching the meeting, when we reduced from 178 to 176 days a couple years ago now, that was a significant savings. So the opposite would happen. So it would be a significant increase, somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 a day for every additional day. I will point out that we're losing 8 instructional days, not 10 instructional.
That's right, because of the Monday. Yeah.
The holiday and the that is built in there. So it is, it's not to say that it's not significant. It obviously is. And we are again, we're reducing the length of the day. We're making significant reductions to the amount of learning time. So, for us, we've talked about increasing the amount of learning time, wanting to do more summer and things along those lines. And so, the hindrance to that has always been, the financial aspects of it, and that would carry over into any desire to increase the number of days.
Yeah, no, and I always get that part, that even though the students are missing the days, the staff is not. It's obviously that's where that gets hung up on. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that obviously that's a legitimate explanation. Yeah. All right, if I don't see any other board members don't have questions, next we'll take public comment on the motion, which is to approve the 2020-2021 calendar. So if there's any members of the public that would like to speak to that motion. Yeah, I don't see anyone. So we're back here to the board for further discussion. Board members, does anyone have any comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. We'll do a roll call vote as well. Consideration and action to approve, by roll call, please indicate your approval to for the proposed 2020-2021 school calendar.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
And Chair Villegas?
Yes. And so that motion passes with a 7-0 vote, unanimous. All right, and we're in personnel items. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed. Election of administrators. Is there a motion? Ms. Morioni, second by Mr. Atkinson. Superintendent or Barb, you want to speak to the motion?
I'll ask Barb Stoddard to please speak to that.
So we are putting forward Chris McCarthy, who's the new administrator for the BREATHE program. We'll be formally introducing him at the September meeting. Forward for your approval tonight.
Do we have any board questions? I don't see any questions. We don't have public comment for personnel items. Any board discussion? Seeing none. We'll put it to a vote. We'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor of approving the personnel items listed, election of administrators, which is the BREATHE program, Chris McCarthy's position, please indicate.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Figdor?
Yes.
Ms. Morioni?
Yes.
And Chair Villegas?
Yes. Okay, next, another personnel items, consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of probationary teachers. Is there a motion? Ms. Figdor, second by Mr. Atkinson. Barbara, Ms. Stoddard, can we speak to this motion as well?
Certainly. We're bringing forward 9 probationary teachers for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Any board questions? Seeing none, we don't take public comment for personnel items, so any board discussion? Seeing none, we'll do through roll call. Indicate if you approve the personnel items listed, election of probationary teachers. Sorry.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Balfons?
Yes.
Ms. Bondo?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Vigdor,
Yes.
Ms. Morioni,
Yes.
and Chair Villegas.
Yes. All right, so that gets us through the meeting. We're about to take a meeting. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm
fading.
So is there a motion to adjourn the business meeting? Ms. Morioni, second by Mr. Balfans. All those in favor, please indicate. We can just wait, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you all. We've adjourned at 12:10 a.m. on Thursday, August 20th. Reminder, we started at 6 p.m. August 18th. I feel like you keep breaking these records for long meetings. And
Exactly.
yeah, thanks a lot. Exactly. Have a good night, everyone. Get some rest.
Yeah.